Hey folks, it's Ard Wolf. Welcome. We're going to talk, hopefully briefly, about the classic bugbear of all kinds of gamings, and that is, of course, errata. The GMT Facebook groups have kind of blown up in the last couple of days with discussions about errata and how aggrieved certain customers feel. And I don't want to show you those complaints because that would necessitate me calling those individuals out, and I don't want to do that. But suffice it to say, I think they are going well above and beyond the level of reasonable discourse and reasonable disgruntlement that one might feel entitled to. So, the specific game that's being discussed, or one of the specific games that's being discussed, is Imperial Struggle, and the publisher is GMT because it's happening on their groups. So, I'm going to show you the Imperial Struggle errata here, and it's not insubstantial, right? So here's the card encounter errata visual summary as of July 20th. This is a number of corrections on the tiles, a number of corrections on, and there's some clarifications here too, right? It's not all just corrections. A lot of it is just cleaning up little bits of language, but there is some substantial changes here. Like this one removes a whole bonus from this card. These map corrections do make a difference, and you can print these out and paste them over your existing map. That's pretty ugly. It's pretty undesirable. But, you know, GMT at this point has been around for a long time. They've released a lot of games, and I didn't look up the number, but I'm sure it's well into the hundreds. And the number of games that have been rendered irreparably marred or unplayable among that list is actually fairly small. It's not zero. There have been a couple of significant problem games. One of those problem games is the Supreme Commander, where when it was released, it was just not in playable condition at all, and an update kit was eventually released for it. And that more or less turned it into a playable game, and yet it's still a game that has a lot of problems. So recognize that there are three kinds of errata that are relevant to wargames, right? You have rules errata, which if the publisher is a responsible publisher, and most wargame publishers are, you will eventually get, maybe not as fast as you want, but you will eventually get an updated rulebook that incorporates those corrections. You have counter errata, which is somewhat more difficult to deal with because the publisher needs to issue physical, in order to correct the problem, needs to issue physical replacement counters. We don't have any information that GMT is going to do this for these items. Historically, GMT has released its errata pieces in C3I magazine. It's a lot harder to do that, and there's no precedent for them releasing replacement cards or map stickers or whatever. A couple companies, Compass has done this, has released stickers that paste over the existing map to fix problems. This is a significant piece of errata, by the way. The second piece of map errata here is more of clarification. That's something you can just note. The Spain one, you could just note that too, but if it's the physical information on the map is wrong, then that makes a difference, and it does make a difference here. So we're not talking about significant, insignificant pieces of errata. The most difficult type of errata to deal with is map errata, because you have to replace the entire map if you're going to replace it, or come up with some other type of solution. The number of GMT games with map errata is pretty small. The number of GMT games with map problems is somewhat higher, but a lot of times those problems turn into visual problems, and that's actually not common for GMT because GMT generally has their graphics pretty much in order, but on occasion, Mark Simonich doesn't get to do the map, and on occasion, among those occasions, that has caused visibility problems on the components. I really strongly encourage. Let me first of all get out that I understand the annoyance with errata, and errata can be a significant barrier to playability in some cases. I don't. The gentleman, one of the gentlemen on Facebook, went so far as to say that he finds Imperial Struggle unplayable with this errata in mind. And to put it bluntly, that is nonsense. It's inconvenient, sure. Undesirable? Sure. Like to get it fixed? Absolutely. Let's come up with some solution. Unplayable? Absolutely not. That's a very strong term to use on a game, and I personally employ it with great conservatism. Imperial Struggle is not an unplayable game. Whether you think it's a good game or not is another question entirely, but it is by no means a not playable game, with or without this errata. That's nonsense. This dude needs to chill and grow up, is what needs to happen. There's actually a couple of individuals that seem really angered to the point where they're saying things like, "I'm not ever going to order from GMT again unless it's a second printing and has the errata factored in." And that's nice, but relatively few GMT games get a second printing, right? I mean, if we're talking about the things like the coin games and Commands and Colors and Combat Commander and Twilight Struggle and stuff like that, then sure, those games, and Imperial Struggle in all likelihood. I don't know if there's a P500 reprint for Imperial Struggle up yet or not, but I think I did hear that it sold out, which doesn't surprise me particularly. It was a very highly anticipated game, and a lot of people like myself didn't get in on the pre-order, so we ended up having to scramble for copies afterwards. Would Imperial Struggle benefit from a second printing with this errata incorporated? Sure, absolutely. Should it have been caught, given especially the game's long development time? Sure, absolutely. No publisher, I shouldn't even need to tell anybody this, no publisher of any kind, I'm not talking about even games, I'm talking about the errors that crept into every printing of The Lord of the Rings, for example. Sometimes errors that had happened years or decades before crept back in due to well-meaning copy editors. Errors happen. And while I don't suggest that we should never mention it and ignore it because they always happen, I do suggest not going absolutely fucking spastic about it. That is not profitable, it's not useful, and I would like everybody to really just chill. Every one of the games that was mentioned as a hugely problematic game either eventually got fixed or it was errata that, while annoying, you were able to work your way through. I welcome other opinions on this, but I would like everybody to just chill and have some perspective about what this problem really means. That errata happens, right? It happens. We hope that it's mild, and almost always it is, to be honest. I won't say that games never release broken and stay broken. That happens too. But again, I can think of a non-zero but very small percentage of GMT games in that state that released broken, and I'm not even sure it is non-zero. It might actually be zero. I think all the examples I can think of either eventually got fixed or people were able to muscle their way through the problems and get a playable game out of at the end. Again, whether those games turn out to be good or enjoyable games is another story. But man, just take it easy, really. This is not worth having a heart attack about. I don't want anybody to have a stroke because GMT misprinted the Austro-Spanish rivalry card. Really, just take it easy. Thanks for watching.